Okay, so as I said, like there's really a lot to say about Citizen Kane. Sorry for being so long already. So Citizen Kane came out, and he had on his contract with RKO a second movie to make, and that's the Magnificent Ambersons. From there, like it will be much faster. Like Citizen Kane was the big piece. There's no way we can really talk about Orson Welles being without putting a lot of attention in Citizen Kane, of course. Magnificent Amberson was his second project. There was also a lot of people from other actors from his theater troupe, the Mercury Theater, notably Joseph Cotten, who had a very brilliant career and all over in Hollywood afterwards, but like he owns everything to Orson Welles, like many people, I believe. Okay, there's Amberson's The Magnificent Amberson is also a very ambitious project. Let's watch a clip, and I'll discuss very quickly about it later.
Goodbye. I've got this dance with her.
With whom?
With Isabel, of course.
18 years have passed. What have they? Tell me, have you danced with poor old Fanny too this evening?
Twice. Wilbur?
My gosh, old times certainly are starting all over again.
Not a bit. There aren't any old times, but times are gone. They're not old, they're dead. There aren't any times but new times.
What are you studying in school?
I beg your pardon?
What are you studying in school?
College.
College.
Oh, lots of useless guff.
Why don't you study some useful guff?
What do you mean useful?
Something you'd use later in your business or profession.
I don't intend to go in a business or profession.
No?
No.
Why not?
Well, just look at them. It's a fine career for a man, isn't it? Lawyers, bankers, politicians. What do they ever get out of life, I'd like to know? What do they know about real things? Where do they ever get?
What do you want to be?
A yachtsman.
So again, there's a 3 or 4 minute shot. Actually, it's just an extract. So with the brilliancy of camera movement and things like that, you can see that there's the ambience. It's the story is with an aristocratic family in the really beginning of the 20th century in America. And then this discussion, it's completely in the flow of the whole scene with the dance and all, and then they have this discussion, and then he applies a bit shallow depth of field, like the rest, the background was blur, which works well when you have just 2 characters and you want the people to focus on those 2 characters. So the Ambersons was a project that he already done in as a radio program. So he just not really an original story. Unfortunately, there's so it was shot at the end of the war. It was released in 1946, but shot at the end of the war. And at that time, Orson Welles was also involved in the world, let's say. And especially, for example, he had a friendship with President Roosevelt. He developed that friendship. There's one of the zillions of anecdotes. Like when you read about Orson Welles, there are so many anecdotes everywhere. But that one is pretty funny. In a party, like in Washington, D.C., Roosevelt told Orson Welles that both of them, they were the 2 greatest actors of their times. Then he became, at that time, kind of a program. Orson Welles became an ambassador the official ambassador for some goodwill program with countries in South America. So that he went to Brazil to film a documentary about samba and the Rio Carnival, this kind of thing. Just he wanted also, he eventually would make it as a proper movie with distributed otherwise. So that he spent quite a few months in Brazil during the editing of The Magnificent Ambersons. And unfortunately, I think he will explain better than me.
Since the end of it, there's a very serious piece of surgery involved there, change.
Which wasn't done by you?
No. There are 2 short scenes in it I didn't write or direct, and over 3 reels were taken out in their entirety, and they were, in my view, the reason for making the film. Not simply good reels, but the whole film was a preparation for those reels, which were too tough and too, in those days, too hard-boiled for the exhibitor's taste. And by the time I returned from South America, that's a long story I won't go into, to supervise the release of Ambersons, Archeo had fallen into the hands of the counter-revolutionary forces, and I no longer was invited into the cutting room.
You've been denied the cutting room before.
Several times.
Just
yes,
recently,
happens constantly.
on a touch of evil.
Yes, that's happened really quite often to extremely individual filmmakers. I'm not saying it isn't a qualitative thing. It's a style, and there's a certain kind of filmmaker who really wants to make the film entirely on his own, and that sort of fellow is the sworn enemy of the system. So
the system,
and the system is at great pains to denigrate such a person. Not only myself, but many people like myself, and that's happened in Russia as well as here, America. It's happened in England. It happens everywhere in varying degrees.
Seeing that this sort of thing happens,
they rightly regard the artist as the enemy of their profession. You see.
Yeah, so that begins really like with this movie, The Magnificent Amberson. Like it's really what he said. Like I think there's another interview when he says the movie was really butchered. It's still a very nice movie to watch, but like indeed the end is the archetype of how to make a happy ending which doesn't make any sense and which is completely out of tone of everything of the rest. And unfortunately, those real shots and the real ending is definitely lost. So we'll never know what was in there actually. And it started like for Orson Welles, I think very important and very, very long step in his stage in his career. That he was in difficulty with the studios, with the production. So somehow that's very interesting how I say he's the godfather of independent movie. I'll talk a bit more about it, but if you have followed before, like there's in the late 60s and beginning of the 70s in the Hollywood, there's a movement which is now called as the New Hollywood, where the studios, they gave control again to the creators. And so he had with this contract and this unique thing, something completely amazing. So in really 1940, when he made at least Citizen Kane, and he made Ambersons with that contract in hand. He just explained that unfortunately the finished Amberson is nowhere near what it should have been. I think there's another interview when he explained that.
You know, my first picture would never have been made, never in a million years, if the producer had lived in Hollywood, had any knowledge of Hollywood. It was a total accident, total piece of luck, like winning $600,000 from a quarter in a jackpot. And it couldn't go on, and I knew that. Because they took my next picture away from me and butchered the end of it, I was going to show them that they were wrong. And I have spent the rest of my life showing people, trying to prove that what is said is wrong. And that's been an enormous waste of spirit and of energy.
Yeah, that's a tough destiny to be in conflict with a powerful system, I suppose. But he had the shoulders to do amazing things in those circumstances. So then after, like, he continued his career in parallel. Like, I completely don't have any track of all the theater that he played, or he produced, or he directed. And as an actor also, he had a very long career. He made one Jane Eyre adaptation, for example, based on the book by Charlotte Bronte. It's All True. It's also the name. It's All True was the name of that production he would have made in Brazil. In 1946, so 1 year after the Ambersons, he made a third movie called The Stranger with Edward G. Robinson as the main character, and it's the story about ex-Nazi German Nazi who has immigrated to America, and he tries to there's a whole story. It's very interesting movie also. He never got the freedom and the means that he had early with Citizen Kane. It never happened again for him. So from now on, like, as I think that he struggled all his life with mostly one thing, is money. Money not for himself, but money to produce, to direct, to realize his project, his artistic project. So his third movie, like, is from cinema point of view, I've chosen one clip which says a lot. I think there's a lot of Hitchcock in that, with the MacGuffin. MacGuffin in Hitchcock terminology is the something that pulls your attention, and it doesn't matter. It can be a microfilm, it can be something like, a glass thing with snow, like that was Rosebud, is really the MacGuffin. Rosebud is the MacGuffin of Citizen Kane. It doesn't matter what it is, but it makes the story run and the character run after something. So here the MacGuffin is a case.
Our little man never did pick up a suitcase, did he?
Nope.
Strange.
Ain't it, though?
Hmm?
I've been tempted once or twice to look and see what's inside it. Ain't even locked.
Well, it seems to me that under the circumstances that you have a perfect right.
You do? Well, I wouldn't want to do it without a witness.
Oh, that's me.
It is? Well, that's all I wanted to know. I'm trying to look in that thing and see where it fits here. Wonder what's in it.
Soil linen,
Uh-huh.
sweater,
Uh-huh.
soap, and a razor wrapped in a towel with SS Cristobal written across it.
Uh-huh.
Pair of old shoes.
Yeah. Yep.
Nothing but religious pamphlets.
Yep, that's all.
Evening, Mr. Potter.
Oh,
Hello, Mr.
Evening.
Wilson.
Potter? Mr. Wilson, hi. You, Mr. Rankin.
Mr. Potter and I have been poking our noses into somebody else's business. That suitcase. Some chap left it here, and he never did call back.
That's been more than 2 weeks ago.
Did he say what he was doing in Hartford?
No, looked in the phone book, didn't telephone. Kind of funny looking he was. A scrawny little feller with big starry blue eyes. Had a queer walk. Like any second he might break into a run.
Did he have a foreign accent?
Why, yes, he did. But not so much of an accent as...
He didn't play, Orson Welles didn't play in his second movie, Amberson, but again he plays in that, like a bit one of the main character. And so as I said, like it's a movie which is about ex-Nazi infiltrating America, basically, and trying to hide. So that's, there's like, I think almost all of his movies, they were not really for the mass media, mass audience, but still, and they had in their team, they were kind of political, as he said before, and I think he'll give a bit more.
It is the duty of every artist to make a political statement. The truth is that every work of art is a political statement. When you deliberately make it, the audience is going to get dizzy. When you deliberately make it, you usually fall into the trap of rhetoric and the trap of speaking to a convinced audience rather than convincing an audience. I think some movies and some books and, God, some paintings have changed the face of the world. But I don't think it is the duty of every artist to change the face of the world. He is doing it by being an artist. That just automatically goes with it. And he may be doing harm when he doesn't mean to. But, oh God, deliver us from the people who tell us what is right and what is wrong, what is moral and what is immoral.
In 1947, he made his next movie, which is a classic of the noir movie, what is called noir, like the story with the crimes and romance and everything. And that movie stars Rita Hayworth and himself. Just a parenthesis about his private life then. Rita Hayworth was his second wife. He was married first when he was young to another young actress, Virginia Nicholson, who's not well known, doesn't matter. But afterwards, Rita Hayworth, when he was still with her, he started dating another famous actress, Dolores Del Rio, and so that he divorced with Rita Hayworth. He got one daughter from each of his marriages, his weddings, and he was married later on with an Italian aristocrat called Paola Mori. And amongst his famous girlfriends probably around that time also he made that movie, was Marilyn Monroe, for example. So he was a very successful man also in this matter, I would say. At the end of the movie, and that's a woman he has met when he was filming the trial, who was filmed partly in Prague, and he met his last partner in life that we'll see at the end. She's called Oja Kodar. That's her scene name. So the lady from Shanghai, with Rita Hayworth, was the biggest star at that time before Marilyn Monroe. She was really the archetype of the femme fatale. She had all the attributes which went with that. For that movie, so the two of them, he asked her. She asked her to cut her hair and have them in blonde, and that was just I read it was mostly a trick to attract that media attention, but that's okay. That's so the lady from Shanghai is a pretty complicated movie, noir. So the noir movie with the police and the crimes and this kind of thing. But it's famous for many things, especially for its ending. Just show 1 minute or two there, which is one of the brilliancy from the mise en scène.
Well, I came to in the crazy house, and for a while there, I thought it was me that was crazy. After what I'd been through, anything crazy at all seemed natural. But now, I was sane on one subject, her. I knew about her. She planned to kill Bannister, she and Grisby. Grisby was to do it for a share of Bannister's money. That's what Grisby thought. But of course she meant to kill Grisby too, after he'd served his purpose. Poor howling idiot. He never even did that. He went and shot Broom, and that was not part of the plan. Broom might have got to the police before he died. And if the cops traced it to Grisby, and the cops made Grisby talk, he'd spill everything, and she'd be finished. So she had to shut up Grisby, but quick. And I was the fall guy.
In here, we're less likely to be heard.
I was thinking it was only your husband you wanted to kill.
Why don't you try to understand? George was supposed to take care of Arthur, but he lost his silly head and shot Broom. After that, I knew I couldn't trust him. He was mad. He had to be shot.
And what about me?
We could have gone off together.
Into the sunrise. You and me, or you and Grisby.
I love you.
One who follows his nature keeps his original nature in the end.
So basically, the story behind this movie is that he wanted to. His own personal project of that time was an adaptation from Jules Verne novel, the Around the World in 80 Days, and he needed some money for that. So he actually accepted to scriptwrite, to direct, and play The Lady from Shanghai for almost nothing. Actually, he gained almost no money, but even if it was a big hit and big production, but that's the money he used to start another project that he didn't finish. Something else also, The Lady from Shanghai was really, he succeeded even with this spectacular shot, and the real one that he filmed, actually it lasts more than 20 minutes, but again, the studio came and cut it. Hopefully there's some brilliancy is still there, but we'll never know the whole scene that he had in mind. But even with that, he succeeded to finish The Lady from Shanghai under budget and also faster than that was planned. So that's a remarkable achievement, I think, for many directors. But even with that, and most of his projects were like that. He managed with a very small budget and a short time. Some of them, they took really long, but that's a different story. Most of his commercial projects were like that. But even with that, he got this reputation of somebody running over budget and over time. I think it looks like it was not fair. His next movie is an adaptation of Macbeth. This time it was really a very small budget, and we can see a clip there. So he plays the main role. He was really also an archetype of the Shakespearean actor, with so much presence and charisma, and his deep voice. It fits very well. Let's see one scene.
First of all, I think directing is the most overrated job in the world. It's the only one I really love in show business, but I think it is tremendously overrated.
Well, now, can that be true in the sense that a great many people that I've talked to who have worked under you as...
I'm sorry to interrupt, so I just spoiled a little bit the next movie, so we're still talking about The Lady from Shanghai.
You as a director have said that they have never been able to duplicate a performance under another director as they have under you. This is a statement from an actor and an actress, which seems to indicate that directing is to them terribly important.
I think it is to actors. I agree. But I think that I think that a director ought to be the assistant and the foundation of a performance, you know? And I think that is a very difficult job, a very worthy job, one that I'm proud to do, and the only one in films that gives me any pleasure at all. I loathe acting in films. But I do think that it's been overblown.
Then why aren't there more good directors?
Oh, well.
There are a lot of bad directors at work. I mean, we can say that.
There are more bad directors at work than people know. Because it's the only profession, movie directing, not stage directing, the only profession in the world where you can be incompetent and go on being successful for 30 years with nobody ever discovering it.
Well, now why?
I mean, utterly and truly incompetent.
Well, now why is that?
Because the only job that a director can do in a film of real value is to do something more than what will happen automatically. If the story is put on, if the actors are good, they find themselves around the cutter, the cameraman, everything. If a director is something of a cameraman, something of a cutter, something of an actor, something of a writer, and preferably completely a cameraman, completely a writer, completely an actor, then his contribution is a real one.
Yeah, sorry. So it was really about his work as a director, and how he felt about a lot of his colleagues. Yeah, so here we are about Macbeth, so I can remind you what I just said about the small production, and we just start from here.
I drink to our good friend Banquo, whom we miss. Would he were here. Which of you have done this?
What is that moves your highness?
Thou canst not say I did.
Never shake thy gory locks at me.
Gentlemen, rise. His Highness is not well.
Sit, worthy friends. My lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth.
Look. Lo.
How say you?
I have a sentimental inclination toward hope. I believe in bravery, and worship it. To me, it's one of the greatest virtues there are. And the fact that I'm a pessimist is part of what gives bravery such an importance to me.
I added this part of the interview. He was talking about whether he was a pessimist because he shot movies which are a bit difficult, and for example like The Ambersons or even Citizen Kane and so on and so forth. So he explained a bit what was his stand in life. His next movie, I'll just show, because it is normally he's not the director, but his influence on this movie, it's The Third Man. It's by Carol Reed. He plays in it, but his influence, I think, on the style of The Third Man was so tremendous, and that it's hard to believe he was actually not participating and helping Carol Reed, the British director, with this movie. It's The Third Man. It's a very nice, famous sequence where he's introduced. It's really impression on right after the Second World War in East Europe.
What kind of a spy do you think you are, Satchelfoot? What are you tailing me for? Cat got your tongue? Come on out. Come out, whoever you are. Step out in the light and let's have a look at you. Who's your boss?
Ja, zum Teufel nochmal, was ist denn da los? Sagen Sie, was fällt denn Ihnen überhaupt ein? Sind Sie deppert? Ja, Sie meine ich, schauen Sie nicht so blöd. Eine Frechheit ist das, mitten in der Nacht so einen Krawall zu machen.
Harry.
Eine Frechheit ist das, so einen Krawall zu machen.
Yeah, you can see, like, I think in the sequence, like, the influence of, again, the beautiful black and white, the strong contrast, the camera angles sometimes, like the, what they call, I think, the Danish angle, which is really from below, pointing the camera up there, and also the angle, like, not straight camera, where the horizon is just like 30 degrees or 40 degrees and all. That's typical compositions.
I really liked the composition. It almost felt like the entire building was a human being almost, because the top floor had the light on, so the eye, and then the bottom, the legs. So it almost felt like a, person.
Yeah, that's a good. I never seen that, but yes, that's a very good input, I believe. I think here there's a clip where he discusses a little bit about the role of an actor.
But I think essentially there is no such thing as becoming another character by putting on a lot of makeup. You may need to put the makeup, but what you're really doing is undressing yourself and even tearing yourself apart and presenting to the public that part of you which corresponds to what you were playing. And there is a villain in each of us, a murderer in each of us, a fascist in each of us, a saint in each of us, and the actor is the man or woman who can eliminate from himself those things which will interfere with that truth. So I look for those kind of people, and I look for the right face, because after all, the camera makes pictures, and it likes people and dislikes people. You have to try to guess which ones it will like and which it won't. Yes.
The next so it's 1951, he has a project for a second adaptation of Shakespeare play. This time it's Othello. To have the budget for this movie, he played the actor in some other movies behind the third man, beside the third man, like Black Rose, for example. And in that movie, that movie was directed by Henry Hathaway, another famous director from the golden age of Hollywood. And what he did is he took costumes from that movie that he was playing for his own movie, Othello. And of course, the director of Henry Hathaway wasn't very happy with that. But at that time, Orson Welles had a good relation with some studio people, so that he managed this way. Again, like one of the zillions of anecdotes, funny anecdotes you can have in such a career. One thing with Othello is that he overdubs probably half of the cast. He could change his voice so that you can hardly recognize him, and it really works. Like not in the same dialogues, for example. Like you cannot overdub a dialogue with two people like speaking to each other. That would be, I think, rather stupid. But like so many actors, like he overdubbed himself, and he explained at some point that yes, it was one of the because of the cost. Like he didn't have the budget to hire other actors, so he ended up doing half of the job himself. That movie Othello was distributed only 3 years later in the US after it was made. It won the equivalent of the Palme d'Or in Cannes. Orson Welles didn't bring a lot of prizes, and definitely not from the US Academy Awards, but from a few festivals, and Othello also won big time in Cannes. There's a clip there that we can watch for 1 or 2 minutes, maybe.
Will you think so?
I think so, Iago.
What? To kiss in private?
An unauthorized kiss.
Or to be naked with a friend in bed an hour or more, not meaning any harm?
Naked in bed?
But if I give my wife a handkerchief...
What then?
Why, then 'tis hers, my lord, and being hers, she may, I think, bestowed on any...
The handkerchief, by heaven, I would most gladly have forgot it. He had my handkerchief.
What of that?
That's not so good now.
What if I said I'd seen him do you wrong, or heard him say...
Have he said anything?
He hath, my lord, but no more than he...
What did he say?
Faith that he did. I know not what he...
What?
Lie.
Lie with her?
With her, on her, what you will.
So again, pretty, I think, inventive use of the camera. You can notice the rhythm also and the fluidity of the editing when there's a very fast cut and it's all stitched together. And then right after that, very peaceful time with the camera pointing on the birds and so on and so forth. Afterwards, like we reached 1955, another production where he plays, where he directs and he produces maybe partly. This time it's Mr. Arkadin. Mr. Arkadin is another thriller, film noir thriller, which is a lot of fun to watch, I think. It's not really, doesn't have a hidden meaning of anything, but there's a very interesting clip again, like showing the atmosphere that he could put with the camera and the decor and everything.
I don't like you either, but I have to save your life. I'll tell you why. It all began one night in the harbor at Naples.
Just about Arkadin, actually I lied a little bit because the plot is about, again, somebody who is very rich, a millionaire, like really super powerful, and because of his daughter, basically there's some story which I don't even remember, which is so complicated, but it's about basically the power of money and the how do you say, the corruption, basically. Corruption not in terms of political corruption, but the moral corruption that power and money can bring in a person, even if looking for the love of his daughter, basically. His next movie is The Touch of Evil. Before that, he started this project of making adaptation of Don Quixote. He started in 1955. It ended up like almost 20 years. He tried to make this movie for real, so that that was pretty usual, that he was working on one project and then took off for some time, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, and tried to put together this kind of project, Don Quixote or others. So that his whole career is a struggle for completing projects, having the money, having the distribution, and so on and so forth. The next movie is Touch of Evil. It's 1958. It's his last movie in Hollywood. That's the main actor, Charlton Heston. He was a big star. That time he recommended that Orson Welles would direct the project, the movie. So now it's another film noir, with a thriller, with the police, with crimes and bombs exploding and all those stuff. It's very well known for its first shot. It's a 3-minute shot, and I put it there, like in his integrity, because I think it's just a brilliant piece of cinema. It's the introduction shot of Touch of Evil. And there's no cut at all from there to the end of the sequence.
You folks are American citizens?
I am
yes.
Where were you born, miss?
Mrs.
What?
Philadelphia.
The name is Vargas. Hey, Jim! You see who's here? Sure, Mr. Vargas. Out on the trail of another dope ring? Out on the trail of a chocolate soda for my wife. Your wife?
Yeah, your bride, officer.
Hey, can I get through? A lot of talk up here about how you cracked that Grandy business.
Yeah, we hear you caught the big boss.
Only one of them. The Grandys are a big family. Good night. No purchases, Mr. Lineker.
Hey, I got this...
You're American citizen, miss?
No, I got this ticking noise.
Yeah, okay.
No, really, this
Good
ticking
night.
noise in my head.
Mike, do you realize this is the very first time we've been together in my country?
Do you realize I haven't kissed you in over an hour?
Yeah, so this long shot, it's really a classic of the classics of the long shots studied in all the cinema schools in the world. I think it starts from this close-up on the bomb, and you can see a whole lot of movement. You discover the whole environment of the movie. Basically, that's the border between Mexico and the US, Texas or whatever. One thing is that, of course, in order to put such a shot together, you need a lot of choreography, a lot of work, and that's really a constant. Like it flows somehow. It looks almost effortless, but of course, like it's crazy work. Orson Welles was really, I think, a very hard worker. He's not only this creative mind, but yeah, hard worker.
I am a kind of optimist that believes in integrity, and in all these virtues which illuminate Western civilization, and which are only, I hope, temporarily out of fashion. I don't believe that the physical outlook of mankind changes virtue. It only obliges us to behave better.
There's here it's a second clip also from The Touch of Evil. So here's again Orson Welles. Of course, that's a bit strange to see him getting older and older, like he became quite fat. And to see from this very charming young person, little by little, taking more and more weight and volume, and also like shouldn't forget that he was really a stage actor, so he was not afraid to put himself with a lot of makeup and putting himself as a person who is definitely not likable. And that's the case in Touch of Evil. He plays the role of a really corrupt cop here. And here that's a pretty lovely scene, I think, with Marlene Dietrich, so who was the actress from Germany from the 30s and who also escaped, tried to escape at least, and she finished her career in Hollywood. So that's a bit touching sequence here, I think.
I don't know what Gwendolyn thinks she's got to do with it.
Anna? Oh, maybe she'll cook chili for him or bring out the crystal ball.
We're closed.
You've been cooking at this hour?
Just cleaning up.
Have you forgotten your old friend?
I told you we were closed.
I'm Hank Quinlan.
I didn't recognize you. You should lay out those candy bars.
It's either the candy or the hooch. Must say, I wish it was your chili I was getting fat on. Anyway, you're sure looking good.
You're a mess, honey.
Yeah. That piano sure brings back memories.
The customers go for it. It's so old, it's new. You got the television, too. We run movies.
Yeah, so do we. About Touch of Evil, like all of his production, it was, again, like the studio, the producers, they kind of butchered the movie again, but it's still a brilliant movie even to watch now. It's one of the archetype of the film noir that's in this genre. And the director of photography here I noted, it's Russell Metty, who worked with, for example, Kubrick on Spartacus, and John Huston with the Misfits. Yeah, it's all pretty good names. Yeah, John Ford, John Huston, they were good friends with Orson Welles, Peter Bogdanovich, as we've seen, so many people like that.